Hey everybody, long time no see. I am back today with another video, and today I'm going to be talking about 6 steps to be a money boss. Now, I know that sounds very simplified and crazy, but really, if you can follow these 6 steps, you can be the boss of your money and you will set yourself up for success in the long run. Now, the reason why I'm covering this is because I have 2 team members that I work with who are both recent college grads, okay? So they're just starting out, they're trying to figure out what is money, how do I manage it well, how do I set myself up for success in the future, and in having conversations with them, I realized that they just really need a little guidance and some guidelines and parameters around steps that they could be taking and probably should be taking at this point now that they have a full-time steady income. So based on the conversation with them, I thought that it would be good to cover this here as well because they are probably not the only people in this boat. And the reality is that whether you're a newbie with money or you've been around for a while and you feel more like a veteran, everything that I'm covering will still be good to hear and to revisit and to maybe think about in a new light. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, I did say that this is 6 steps, but really that's because you want to go ahead and do some due diligence before you get to step 1. So we will call this step X. And the reason we're calling this step X is because this is where you are going to create a budget, okay? So anytime you're at point A and you want to get to point B or C or D, you have to first know what you're working with, okay? And so in this case with money, that means we need to create a budget, okay? We need to know what is coming in and we need to know what is going out, okay? So my recommendation, if this is you and you've never done a budget, start by just pulling your bank statements for the past 3 months, okay? That'll give you a good amount of data to work with. You can see what some of those one-off expenses are, you can see what some of those recurring expenses are, and it'll give you a good baseline for then creating your monthly budget, okay? So your budget is going to include everything from rent or mortgage payments to how much you're spending on gas and groceries and restaurants and utilities like electricity and water, okay? It's also going to include anything you're spending outside of the practical categories, okay? So subscriptions like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, anything that is going out of your bank account and coming into your bank account should be accounted for in your budget, okay? Now, once you actually have a budget in place and you know where you stand, the next thing you're going to move to is step 1, okay? We have made it. We're rocking and rolling now. So the first thing you're going to do after this is you are going to build an emergency fund, okay? Now, this is exactly what it sounds like because the reality is that life happens, and when life happens, you need to have some money set aside so that you're not going into extra debt. You don't have to hopefully take out any kind of loans or rack up a ton of credit card debt at really high interest rates, okay? So for your emergency fund, what I recommend is you go one of 2 routes, okay? You either do $1,000, which is manageable. It depending on your situation, it may take some effort, but you can do this. So start with emergency fund of $1,000 or 1 month's expenses, okay? Whichever number is greater, okay? So if your rent is $1,200 a month, go ahead and have a $1,200 emergency fund, okay? And for this, what I also recommend is that you put your emergency fund in a separate banking account from where you have your checking, okay? So if your checking is at Chase, go ahead and set up your emergency fund in a savings account at another institution, okay? If you saw my previous video from a couple weeks ago, I did a review of Ally. I highly recommend Ally Bank, okay? It's a great bank. It's a high yield savings account. So if you put $1,000 in there, for instance, each month you would earn 3.3% in interest on that account, which is phenomenal because in comparison to a bank like Chase, on that $1,000 each month, you would be earning like 0.01%, which would translate to like 5 cents a month, which is nothing, okay? It's literally pennies. So open up a high yield savings account at another institution. The reason why is because if it's elsewhere, it'll be a little harder for you to access, okay? So if it's, something that you can easily transfer from savings to checking at the same institution, what might happen is you might have something that comes up where it's like, oh, I would really like to go blow $200 on this random entertainment thing that my friends have invited me to. Well, I don't have the money, but that emergency fund is sitting there. Let me just transfer some money over, okay? So you want to make it a little difficult on yourself so that you can ensure that those funds are there to be used for the appropriate reasons and that it's there when you need it, okay? So step 1, build an emergency fund, okay? Now, this is then where things are going to get a little more personal, and depending on your situation, you might go a few different ways, okay? But after you've built that, we're going to move on to step 2. Now, step 2 is employer matching funds, okay? So in retirement accounts. So what this means, there we go, employer matching funds, is for this scenario, you're going to say, okay, does my employer offer any kind of retirement account with a match? Now, typically this will be a 401k. And if the answer is yes, okay, so employer matching funds, yes. Then what you're going to do is you're going to contribute the amount of money needed to get your full employer match, but nothing above that amount, okay? So, for instance, in my place of employment, I do have a 401k that is offered, and my employer does a matching fund, and in that fund, they match 100% up to 3% of my salary, okay? So in order to get 100% of that match, I would have to contribute at least 3%, okay? Now, the reason why you should do this is because it is literally a 100% return on investment, okay? If you are putting in $100, you're getting that back, right? It's the most risk-free thing you can do, okay? Because if you're contributing your part and you're doing 3%, they are matching that at 100% up to 3% of your salary. I mean, you can't beat it, okay? So if you're unsure, I definitely would encourage you to check in with your HR team, check in with, your intranet documentation. It should be listed, and see, some companies, it's even better than 3%. Some of them, it's, hey, we'll do 100% up to 5% of your salary, 7% of your salary, okay? So that is free money that they will contribute to your retirement. I mean, it's, again, you just can't beat it, okay? So look into that. And then you will need to also decide if you want to contribute to your 401k as a pre-tax or post-tax. Again, that's going to depend on your financial situation, and I'm not going to cover the differences in that for this video, but definitely also look into that, okay? So this is step X, step 1 and step 2. This is part 1 of this video series that I am kicking off. And in the next video, we will get into a few more steps. And hopefully, as you all work through this and go through this, you will start to feel more and more confident that you can not only save for retirement, but set yourself up very well to succeed in retirement and to have the funds that you need. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Part 2 will be coming out shortly, and I hope you'll follow along.